Welcome back, friends. So we are learning about a very integral part of human resource management function, and that is training and development. So we have learned up till now that what are the benefits of training. Certainly these benefits are for the individuals, the organization itself is benefited by training, and the interpersonal and intrapersonal relationships are also benefited with the help of training and development programs. Now, apart from the benefits, there are certain disadvantages of training and development also. So, all that we have learned, and now we come to the training process. So, what all steps are involved when we have to implement a certain training program? So, training cannot be done in a haphazard manner, or that just you plan it today that okay, we are going to have a training session tomorrow. So, it cannot be done in that way because there are a number of steps involved, and each of these steps is very crucial, and you must before implementing these training programs, you must be aware of all these steps. So, as far as the training process is concerned, you can see in the slide that there are 6 basic steps. So, the first one is identifying the training needs. Then you establish the specific objectives, that what is the objective of this particular training program. Every training program will have a different objective. Then you have to select the appropriate method on how to impart training. Then you actually implement that program, whatever training is to be given, you give that training, and then you evaluate what all has been taught or what all information has been given to the trainees. And after evaluating your training, you get the feedback from your trainees as well as the trainer. So, these are the 6 steps of the training process, and we are going to learn about all these steps one by one. So, friends, the first step, as I said, is identifying training needs. Now, this means that whether the employee needs training or not. So, training need basically is a difference between the standard performance and actual performance. So, if your actual performance is lower than what the standard performance should be, then you definitely need training. So, training tries to bridge the gap between, and this gap clearly underlines the need for training of employees. And during this phase, the gap is identified in order to assess the training needs. So, training needs help us in assessing the gap between what is the actual performance and what performance should be there. Now, the needs assessment can be studied from 2 perspectives. Either the training need is of the individual, or it can be a group need. Now, what we mean by individual and group needs is that the individual training is designed to enhance a particular individual's efficiency when he or she is not performing adequately. So, in a team, it is not necessary that the entire team needs training. There might be a single individual who needs training. So, in that case, it is individual training. So, the design of that training program will be specific to the individual's needs, not of the other people or the team members. And the second is the group training, and it is intended to inculcate new changes in all the employees due to a change in the organization's strategy. So, if the vision mission of the organization has changed, or if the environmental changes has led the organization to change itself, in that case every individual who is working in that organization will need training. So, that is what is called group training. So, the needs of individuals and needs of groups would be different. So, that is why needs assessment is a very important step. So, the main task in analyzing training needs is to determine what the job entails and to break it down into subtasks. So, here we just try to analyze as to what are the various jobs that are being performed by an individual, and then those jobs are broken down into smaller subtasks. And analyzing the current employee's needs can be more complex since you have the added task of deciding whether training is the solution. So, not always an employee needs training. You have to assess the reasons why the employee is underperforming. So, if the skills have to be enhanced, then definitely training is the solution. But many a times there are certain other issues. There can be some traumas due to which the employee is underperforming. So, in that case, counseling or mentoring him can be helpful and not training. So, here in this very step itself, you must analyze as to what the employee's needs are and then decide whether training is to be given or counseling or mentoring is to be done. So, friends, the training needs are analyzed with the help of three types of analysis. So, there are three types of analysis that are done. The first one is the organizational analysis, the second is the role analysis, and the third is the manpower analysis. Now, what do we mean by each one of them is, if we are talking of organizational analysis, the entire organization here is studied in the terms of its objectives, the resources it has, resource allocation and how these resources are utilized, the growth potential and the environment. So, the reason for this analysis is to determine where training emphasis should be placed within the organization. So, which department has the maximum of resources, how these resources can be allocated, what is the growth potential of particular department, so that whenever we are imparting training, we can avail maximum benefits. So, organizational analysis also helps in determining the training needs. So, the next one is the role or task analysis. So, this one is a detailed examination of the various aspects involved in the job. So, what all jobs you are doing, and while doing those jobs, what all things you are performing, what all skills you need to perform that job. So, it studies the various operations and the conditions under which these operations are to be performed. So, if an individual is performing under high stress or maybe high temperature areas, so we need to understand those working conditions also to understand the role analysis. The next is the manpower analysis. So, the primary purpose of manpower analysis is basically to study the abilities, the skills, the growth and development of individual. And this helps in analyzing the strengths and weaknesses of individual and in determining whether he requires training or not. So, here again we must analyze as to why the individual is underperforming, if that case is there. So, what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses of that individual and how training can help. So, if yes, then what kind of training is required for him. So, if you feel that it is a lack of training due to which the individual is underperforming, then you will also decide as to what kind of training is required. So, that is all done during the manpower analysis. Now, what are the benefits of training needs assessment? So, why we have to assess the training needs of individuals and why we can't just straight away start from training. This is a very important step, as I stated, of assessing the needs. Now, training needs assessment, it helps the trainer also to understand the current level of knowledge, skills and abilities of employees. Now, if I am a trainer and my audience is already knowledgeable and already have those skills that I want to give them, So will my training be beneficial? No, it will not be beneficial. So I have to assess that what my audience wants, what is their current level of knowledge, what all things they already know and what all things they have to be taught or trained on. And this further helps the trainer design the training program as per needs. So the needs of every individual or every group would be different. If I am conducting a training session in a bank, say, now the bank employees will have different needs, and if the same training program is conducted for teachers, so teachers will have different needs. So you must assess the needs of your audiences, and when that needs are assessed, then you can design your training program as per these needs, and this makes it more aligned with the HR activities. So that is very essential that all the training needs are aligned with the HR activities. Now the second step in the training process is establishing specific objectives. So as I said that every training program has a different objective. Every training program has different audiences. So once you have assessed or identified the needs of the audience or the employees, the objectives for which training is to be conducted are then established. And the objectives could be based on gaps seen in training programs conducted earlier and the skill sets developed by the employees. So now we know that there are gaps, we know that there are difference in the performance between their current performance and what is expected performance. Now these gaps are identified, and on the basis of these gaps you have to establish what objective you have in mind as far as training is concerned. So there can be two types of objectives. One can be the long term objective and the other is the short term objective. So the long term objective of any training and development program is to increase overall organizational effectiveness. So every organizational training and development program, it seeks effectiveness. So they want their organization to be effective by training their people. So this is the long term objective. But we also have some short term objectives, and these are like enhancing productivity, enhancing the quality of work, effective human resource planning, better morale, health, safety, prevention of obsolescence, personal growth as a yardstick of performance. And through these short term objectives, the organization achieves its long term objective of organizational effectiveness. Now the third step in the training process is selecting the appropriate method. So every training program encompasses certain issues which have to be addressed during this phase as to who are the trainees. We have to identify the people who need to be trained. Then second, who are the trainers? Are we going to employ somebody from the organization, or are we bringing in somebody from outside, maybe a corporate or a professional trainer? So what methods and technologies are to be used while training your people? So what should be the level of training? There can be different levels. One can be the basic training, then there can be for mid-level managers, then there can be advanced level of trainings. So you have to determine that what level of training is to be imparted and what principles of learning have to be taken care of, and when to conduct this training program. The duration, the tenure, the time period, everything is decided during this phase. And there are a number of training methods that organizations use. So we are going to learn about all these methods in subsequent lectures, because this is a separate topic as what all methods of training are there. So also the comprehensive action plan is designed during this phase that includes training content, the information that you are going to impart, the material, the learning theories, the instructional design and other training requisites. So there are a number of training methods available, but their suitability is judged as per the need of organizational training needs. So everybody has separate needs, and based on those needs you have to determine as to what method you are going to use while training. So friends, the next important step is the implementation of training program. Now up till now you are clear as to the needs of your people, the training needs have been assessed, the objective of your training program has been established, and the training program itself has been designed. Now is the phase of implementing that program. So prepared plans and programs are implemented to get the desired output. So employees are trained to develop for better performance of organizational activities, and also the trainees are monitored continuously throughout training program to see if it's effective and it's able to retain the employees' interest. So more important than imparting the knowledge is that the employees should be engaged in those training programs and they retain whatever they are being taught or whatever information they are being given. They must retain all those things in the training program. Now, what are the challenges in implementation? So, this is not a very easy job as far as implementing a training program is concerned. There are certain challenges that are faced by the HR departments, that might be faced by even the trainers, right? So let's learn about all these challenges in implementing the training program. The first one is that top management feels it to be a waste of time. So we have learned this, that this is one of the barriers in effective training. The top management also feels that it is a waste of time and money. They feel that training is not the solution. The next challenge is the availability of good and effective trainers. So that is also very crucial because you might be having a very good training program, but the trainer who is imparting is not very good in communication, is not good in developing a rapport with the audience or with the employees. So there your training program will fail. So that availability of effective trainers is also a challenge. Then scheduling training within the work hours is very tedious because all the employees have their working hours fixed. They have to do their job also, and they have to get the training also. So it becomes very difficult at times that while doing your routine operations, you have to get that training also. So that is again a challenge in implementation. And the next challenge is that record keeping about the performance of a trainee during his or her training period. Now most of the time it is not possible for all organizations to keep a record of what all the trainees have learned and how their performance was before the training and after the training, which is very crucial if you have to measure the effectiveness of your training, that we will be learning just now. So that record keeping is also a challenge in implementing. So friends, the next step in the training process is evaluating the program. Now after the training is done, the employees are asked to give their feedback on the training session and whether they felt that the training was useful for them or not. So this evaluation is a must because companies invest huge amounts in these sessions. So they invest money and as well as their time in these sessions. So they must know the effectiveness. It is just like calculating the ROI or return on investment. So if you are investing certain amount of money, you must also know that what returns you are going to get in terms of money. So that is one of the reasons that the top management does not feel like providing training to their employees, because they do not see anything tangible, anything that can be easily measured. So that measurement is also we can say a drawback or a barrier in training. So the evaluation is very important. So it involves evaluation of various aspects of training in order to know the effectiveness of training program, and it refers to training utility in terms of effect of training on employees' performance. So, what training has benefited the employees? Have the employees benefited actually, and has their performance enhanced because of that training? That is to be determined. And through feedback, an organization can determine the weak spots, if any, and they can rectify it subsequently. So, when you evaluate your program, you get to understand the weak spots that were left, or the blind spots that you could not initially anticipate, but after the training program you felt that okay, these things could also have been incorporated, or we could have made it shorter, or any blind spot that you determine, so that it can be rectified in the subsequent training programs. And real effectiveness of a training and development efforts can be judged from a systematic study of actual change in behavior and performance on job over an extended period of time. So, every training program seeks a change in behavior, a change in performance. But if your behavior has not changed, if your performance has not changed over a period of time, that means the training has not been successful. So, the effectiveness of a training and development program can only be judged if over an extended period of time your performance, your behavior, your attitude has changed in a positive manner. So, that is what determines the effectiveness of any training program. So, now you must remember that your employees are adults and not children. Another very, I would say, a potential challenge is that the people who you are training are adults and they are not children, and the principles used to train them will be different from those used on children. But when we are training, we feel that they are just like kids, but no, their mindsets are different. So, knowing these principles, it allows you to design and choose your training program in a way that makes them more effective. Now, let us learn about what is adult learning principles, because it is very important to understand that the individuals or employees that you are training are not children, but they are adults. So, you need to design your training program or training modules according to adult learnings, and adults already have pre-existing knowledge, they already have some experiences and notions that they bring to training. But a child who is sitting in the class, no matter which class it is, they are like a canvas, they do not have any prior knowledge. But we as adults have our own experiences, we have our own set of knowledge, we have our own beliefs that we bring to every training program that we go and attend. So, the trainer has to be very efficient, and he must understand that the individuals sitting in front of them are not children. You cannot just say anything, you have to assess their current knowledge, what experiences they have brought. So, that is why training is challenging. Then adults are also self-directed. They want their training to be task or project oriented. So, they want outcome based trainings is required. They are self-directed and they are more of project oriented. They also need to feel respected during the training for them to respond positively to it. So, if they do not feel respected in the training session or training program, they will never have the benefit of the training. Then adults need training that is relevant to them. So, they will not just go and sit in any training program, they will only acquire knowledge, or they will only want to be trained for the skills that are relevant to them. And adults need training that is goal oriented. So, every training, if it has a certain goal and that goal is aligned with the goal of the individual, then only the benefits of training can be transferred. Now, what are the principles of evaluation? So, evaluation, we said that it is very important for a training program to be evaluated. So, evaluation of a training program must be based on these principles. So, first is that evaluation specialist must be clear about the goals and purposes of evaluation. So, whatever you are evaluating, you must be aware of the goals, that why you are evaluating this particular training program. What is the purpose of this evaluation? And the second principle of evaluation is that it must be continuous. It should not break in between. It must keep on going. And it must be specific. You must be very clear as to what you are evaluating and what specifically you want to evaluate in the training program. Are you evaluating the knowledge? Are you evaluating the content? Are you evaluating the behavior? So, what are you evaluating? That also must be clear in your mind. And evaluation must be based on objective methods and standards. So, subjectivity should not be there, it must be based on objective methods, and realistic target dates must be set for each phase of evaluation process. So, you must determine as to when you have to evaluate. So, evaluation must provide the means and focus for trainers to be able to appraise themselves, their practices and their products. So, apart from evaluating the trainees, the trainers also must evaluate themselves. They must also assess themselves, their practices, their content. So, one content might not be relevant in the other sector, as I gave you the example of bank and teaching. So, a bank manager training and the training of teachers in a school or a college would be different. So, as a trainer, you must evaluate your practices, what product you are selling, product as in the training program that you are selling or to the training that you are giving to the people. So, every sector has its own needs, every sector has its own skills. So, that has to be determined and that has to be evaluated by yourself. Now, measuring the effectiveness of training. Now, Donald Kirkpatrick developed a Kirkpatrick evaluation model for evaluating the trainings during the 1950s, and the method was initially published in a trade journal and later it was published in a book titled Evaluating Training Programs, and today it is most recognized method of evaluating the effectiveness of training programs. So, anytime you deliver training to your team, you need to know how effective it has been. Are your people putting their learning into practice? Is it positively impacting their role and the wider organization? So, friends, up till now we have learnt about the training and development that goes on in the organizations, what all benefits are there, what all disadvantages of training and development program can be there in the organization if it is not implemented in a proper and a timely manner. Then we also learnt about the various phases of the training process. So, we will continue with all these, specifically the effectiveness of training and development programs and how we can measure the effectiveness of these training in the next couple of lectures. So, thank you.